Okay, so ready for a deep dive into AI for the classroom. We're checking out these materials from the Raspberry Pi Foundation. Looks like someone's about to be the coolest teacher around.
And it's about time, right? I mean, AI is everywhere you look these days, but there's a lot more to it than just robots and science fiction.
Totally. So how do these materials break down AI in a way that clicks for, younger minds? What's the key takeaway for teachers?
Well, the first thing they stress is that AI isn't about, sentient machines taking over the world. It's about designing systems that can tackle things that, well, we used to believe only humans could do. Like, think about recognizing patterns or making decisions.
So it's more like we're building really smart tools rather than facing some kind of robot uprising.
Exactly. And within AI, there's this whole fascinating area called machine learning. It's all about feeding tons and tons of data to computers so they can, well, learn without someone having to program them for every single outcome.
So it's kind of like teaching a dog a new trick, but instead of treats, we're using mountains of data. That reminds me, actually, there's that quick draw game from these materials.
Yeah.
That seems like the perfect example, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Quick draw is a great way to show how machine learning works. It's trained on millions of doodles, so it can usually guess what you're drawing pretty accurately. It's a fun way for students to kind of wrap their heads around how powerful data can be when it comes to teaching machines.
Makes you wonder how many things we use every day rely on this whole learning from data idea, huh? But the materials also talk about something called the AI effect, which I thought was interesting. What exactly is that?
Oh, that's funny. It's that thing where as soon as a new technology becomes like totally normal, we stop thinking of it as AI.
No.
Take Deep Blue, for example. You know, that chess playing computer that caused such a big stir years ago.
Yeah.
These days, it wouldn't seem nearly as groundbreaking, even though the AI behind it is still really impressive.
That's a good point. Our idea of what's intelligent changes right along with technology. But moving on from chess, for now, let's talk about the different flavors of AI. The materials make a distinction between predictive and generative AI, which I'll admit I hadn't really thought about before,
It's a super important difference. Think of predictive AI like those recommendation engines. You know, the ones Netflix uses to tell you what to watch.
which can be scary accurate sometimes, like it knows my taste better than I do.
Right. And that's because it's really good at seeing patterns in huge amounts of data. It's all about anticipating what might happen next. Generative AI, though, that's different. It's all about creating something totally new, like those AI-generated images you see everywhere online these days.
Now, those are impressive. It's like we've given AI a paintbrush and let it loose in the digital world. But how does that kind of AI even work? It almost feels like magic.
Well, a lot of that magic comes from these things called large language models, or LLMs. They're trained on mountains of text data. So they're able to generate really human-sounding texts. They can do things like translate languages and even write different kinds of creative content.
So it's like having a superpowered writing assistant,
Yeah.
one that can also pass any language test you throw at it. I'm guessing ChatGPT is the most famous example of this, right?
Exactly. And we're already seeing how tools like ChatGPT might change education. Imagine personalized quizzes that are different for each student, giving them instant feedback.
Wow. No more one-size-fits-all tests. That would be like having a personal tutor for every student. But while we're talking about these cool AI tools, the materials also go into image generators. What kind of possibilities do those offer in a classroom?
Think of it as a total visual revolution for learning. Students could create their own visuals for presentations, design graphics for projects, even bring historical scenes to life with AI-generated images.
Wow, history lessons would be so much more engaging. But I imagine there are some challenges that come with tools this powerful.
You're right. It's really important to help students understand that even though these AI tools are sophisticated, they don't actually understand the information they use the same way people do. They're amazing at mimicking human language and creativity, but they're still tools and they need to be used responsibly.
So we can't just teach kids how to use these tools, right? We have to teach them how to think critically about them.
Exactly. We want them to ask good questions, understand the limitations, and use these tools ethically and responsibly.
Speaking of ethical use, the materials also talk about how AI will impact the job market, which is something else educators need to be thinking about.
For sure. AI is already changing the job market, and those changes are only going to speed up in the next few years. We need to get our students ready for a world where some jobs might not exist anymore because of automation, but where tons of new careers are popping up in things like AI development.
So it's not just about teaching kids how to use AI. It's about giving them the skills they'll need to thrive in a world that's driven by AI.
Yes, and those skills go way beyond just the technical stuff. We need to
Mhm.
help them build up their critical thinking, their problem-solving skills, their creativity, their adaptability. Those are the things that will set them up for success.
It's about turning them into lifelong learners who can roll with the changes in a world that never sits still. Right.
Mm.
But how do we actually start bringing all of this into the classroom?
Well, the materials lay out this really helpful roadmap called the AI Project Lifecycle, which I think we should take a closer look at after a quick break.
So before the break, we were about to dig into that AI project lifecycle. Sounds like a pretty handy roadmap for bringing AI into the classroom.
Oh, it definitely is. It's like giving students a backstage pass to see how AI is actually built and used, and that can help them become smarter users and even, creators of AI themselves.
Love that. Not just users, but creators.
Yeah.
So what are the main stages in this life cycle that teachers should know about?
Well, you start by finding a real-world problem that AI could maybe help solve. That step alone is great for boosting those critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Then there's the data part, collecting it and cleaning it up. And that's where things can get a little tricky.
Because if the data you use to train an AI model is messed up or biased, you're going to end up with results that reflect those flaws, right?
Exactly. Think of it like trying to teach a kid how to talk, but only giving them rhyming dictionaries. They might be able to rhyme like crazy, but they won't really understand how language actually works. That's why it's so important to stress how crucial it is to use data that's diverse and represents everyone. And we've got to do that right from the start.
So it's not just about feeding the AI any old data. It's about picking the right data. So what comes after the data stage in this AI project lifecycle?
Well, then comes the fun part, training the AI model. That's when the system learns to spot patterns and make predictions based on all that data we were just talking about.
Kind of like how we train a dog with those positive vibes, but instead of treats, we're using data.
You got it. And just like with dog training, the more consistent and relevant the training, the better the results you're going to get. But wait, there's more. Once you've got a trained model, you've got to put it through its paces, really test it out. We need to see how well it handles new information and check if it has any hidden biases.
So it's not just a set it and forget it deal.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of tweaking and refining involved.
You bet. And that's a really important lesson for students to learn, too. AI development is an ongoing process. It's always changing and improving.
Right. AI is a tool, not a magic wand. And speaking of tools, the materials highlight some pretty cool AI-powered platforms that teachers can use to, really make these concepts come alive for students. Any of those stand out to you?
There are tons of awesome ones out there, but one that I always find really engaging is Quick Draw,
Yeah.
which we talked about earlier. It's perfect for introducing students to the ideas behind machine learning and image recognition in a fun, interactive way.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's surprisingly addictive. I can see it sparking a lot of curiosity in the classroom, getting kids thinking about all the things AI can do.
And to tap into that creative side of AI, there's Crayon, used to be called Daily Mini. Kids can use it to make images from descriptions they type in. I think it'd be a powerful tool for visual learners and a fun way to explore how AI is changing art and design.
Talk about a recipe for some seriously imaginative projects. Imagine students being able to see their ideas right away, whether they're working on a history report, a science fair presentation, or even just a creative writing assignment.
Exactly. And there are also platforms designed specifically for education, like Google's AI experiments. These give students hands-on activities and simulations so they can explore things like natural language processing and, of course, machine learning.
So it's like giving them a front row seat to the world of AI, letting them test things out and explore in a safe and educational setting.
Exactly. And as educators, we're here to guide them, encourage that curiosity, and help them develop the critical thinking skills they'll need to navigate this whole new world of AI.
Because at the end of the day, we don't just want to teach them about AI, right?
Right.
We want to empower them to be responsible and ethical users and creators of these tools.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We want them to be the ones who shape the future of AI, using these incredible tools to make the world a better place.
Beautifully put. Now, let's switch gears for a second and talk about an interesting teaching strategy that caught my eye in the materials. They call it semantic waves. I have to admit, I'd never heard of it before. How would you explain it to a teacher who's new to this whole idea?
Oh, it's a really clever way to introduce tricky concepts, and it works really well for something like AI. Imagine you're trying to explain, say, algorithms, which can sound pretty intimidating. Instead of bombarding students with a bunch of technical jargon, you start with something familiar, like a recipe.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. A recipe is basically a list of steps, just like an algorithm.
Bingo. You've ridden that semantic wave. You start with a concrete example that students can relate to, and then you slowly unpack the concept from there. You introduce those more abstract and complex ideas as they start to build their understanding.
So you're basically building those learning scaffolds as you go, moving from what they know to what they don't, from the concrete to the abstract. It's pretty intuitive when you think about it like that.
Right, and it can be super effective when you're teaching AI, especially for younger learners. They might not be ready for super technical explanations, but you can use semantic waves to introduce all sorts of things, from machine learning to even natural language processing.
I love it. It's all about making these concepts that seem really complex, accessible, and engaging for all learners, no matter where they're at.
And that's what's so exciting about this field. There are so many creative and innovative ways to teach AI, and the materials you're using, they're seriously fantastic resources for educators. Whether they're just starting out with AI or looking for new ideas, those Raspberry Pi Foundation materials are a goldmine.
Couldn't agree more. But before we wrap up this part of our AI deep dive, I wanted to circle back to something you touched on earlier about the ethical side of AI. It feels like that's a thread that runs through all of these materials.
Oh, definitely. And for good reason. AI is becoming a bigger part of our lives all the time, so we need to be talking about ethics, especially with young people. After all, they're the ones who are going to inherit this AI-powered future.
So how do we even start to tackle something as big and complicated as AI ethics in a classroom setting? What are some things that teachers can actually do?
Well, these materials have some great suggestions. One approach is to use real-world examples. Case studies that show the ethical challenges of AI. You could have students analyze a news story about an AI system that made a biased decision, or talk about what it would mean to use facial recognition technology in schools.
Wow, those are some thought-provoking examples. Definitely a good way to get those classroom discussions going. What other strategies do they talk about?
Yeah, thinking about those real-world AI examples really hits home how important it is to be having these conversations about ethics, right? It's not just some theoretical thing. It's about, well, the kind of future we're building.
It really is. And one of the most powerful things we can do as educators is give students the tools they need to look at these real-world situations and analyze them for themselves.
So it's less about like handing them a list of rules for AI and more about helping them develop that critical thinking, that ability to ask those tough questions.
Exactly. In fact, the materials suggest using this framework called SEAM. Stands for Social and Ethical Application Model and Engine. It's a way to encourage that step-by-step thinking, helps them understand AI from these different angles.
Okay, I like that. It sounds nice and organized. How would a teacher actually use SEMA in the classroom? Well, you'd want to think about the age and level of your students, right? So for younger kids, you might stick with those social and ethical parts, have them talk about how AI shows up in their favorite video games or how it could even like help them with homework.
That's smart, makes it relatable. And
Mhm.
as they get older, you could start digging into the application, model, and engine stuff,
Yeah,
explore real-world examples, and maybe even do a little bit of basic AI programming.
exactly. And all along the way, keep encouraging those questions. How does this AI actually work? What can it do? Could it be used in a way that isn't fair?
Those are the questions we need them thinking about. It's about raising a generation of innovators who really think for themselves, not just, people who blindly use whatever technology is put in front of them.
That's what it's all about. And the exciting thing is there are so many incredible resources to help teachers do just that. The materials you shared, for example, highlight some amazing AI platforms that are perfect for the classroom.
Right? Feels like there's a whole toolbox out there now. And
Yeah.
I can also see how it might be a little overwhelming, like where do you even start? Anything in the materials that you're particularly fond of?
One that always gets a great reaction is Google's Teachable Machine. It lets students build their own machine learning models. They can literally teach a computer to recognize images or sounds. It's such a good way to take something that seems really complicated and make it hands-on.
Love that. It's like no more mystery. You get to build it yourself. And what about those awesome AI art platforms we were talking about earlier?
Oh, absolutely. Things like Crayon and AutoDraw, those are so engaging for students of all ages. They can play around with making images from text, try different art styles, even work together on creative projects. It's just a really fun way to get their imaginations going and show them what AI can do in the art world.
It really is like having a whole new set of art supplies, right?
Mhm.
But these are powered by algorithms.
Mhm.
Wild. But As much as we want to empower kids to use these tools, we also need to make sure they're using them responsibly and ethically.
Couldn't agree more. And the materials have some really practical advice for teachers on that front. One of the key things they emphasize is setting clear expectations for how AI can be used in the classroom, just like we do with internet safety and responsible online behavior, right?
Right, so like creating an AI code of conduct, outlining what's okay and what's not, making sure they understand the importance of doing their own work.
Yes, but it goes beyond just, laying down the law. We want to create a classroom where kids feel comfortable asking questions, talking about those ethical gray areas, and, challenging each other to think critically about the impact AI is having.
It's about empowering them to be more than just users of AI, right? They could be informed citizens who help shape how these technologies are developed and used for the benefit of, well, everyone.
Exactly. And that journey starts right here in the classroom with educators like you leading the way.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap up our deep dive into AI for educators.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Huge thanks to the Raspberry Pi Foundation for putting together such insightful and thorough materials. And to everyone listening, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes. How are you planning to incorporate AI in your classroom? What kind of opportunities and challenges do you see on the horizon? Come share your thoughts on our website, and let's keep this important conversation going.
Don't forget, this is just the beginning of the AI revolution in education. There's so much potential, and together, we can make sure the next generation is ready to navigate it ethically and responsibly. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.